Good morning, everyone. And it's 9 a.m. and I am starting our Cafecito for this Thursday. So we are actually one day before Cafecito ends. And I have some announcements for you tomorrow, so hope you tune in tomorrow. I'm just really excited about today because I've invited a friend of mine to join us. So I'm going to start reading a little bit about her. I'll go ahead and pin what we're talking about today. Let me go ahead and read a little bit about Johanna here. So Johanna will be joining us here soon. So Johanna LeBlanc is a national security and foreign affairs legal analyst. She often appears on national television through the continent in Africa, where she discusses foreign policy-related matters. In addition, she serves as a senior advisor to Haiti's Ambassador to the United States, Minister in Foreign Affairs. She advises the Haitian government on issues pertaining to national security, immigration, and trade, and promotes the interests of the state before the U.S. Congress, the White House, and the State Department. She holds a juris doctorate from Indiana University, so that's where I went to, Robert H. McKinney School of Law, and a master's LLM in National Security and U.S. Foreign Relations from George Washington University. In addition, she holds an undergraduate degree from Bethune-Cookman University and a master's degree in public administration from Florida AMU University. Ms. LeBlanc recently earned an honorary doctorate from Bethune-Cookman University. She is an immigrant from the Republic of Haiti. So I will be right now adding her into our call right now.
Hi, good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon to you.
I know I had the time all mixed up earlier. I didn't realize the time difference. My apologies.
It's okay. Yeah, since I moved here, we have different time frames. So.
Yes. But I should be used to this by now because I do a lot of work in Africa, so I should be used to the different time zones.
Right. Oh my gosh, I'm happy to have you here, Johanna. And
thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so I have my cafecito ready, and I'm happy to have you here and see if our audience has questions for you. You're in Washington, D.C., for those who are watching. And she is, anyways, how are you doing today? I should have started with that.
I'm doing well. I can't complain. It's Thursday, one more day, then it'll be Friday. So working from home. It's been about 6 weeks now because of COVID-19, obviously. But we're hoping that we can get past this sooner than later.
Yeah, I really hope it goes by somehow. I really miss seeing humans and my family, so I'm really looking forward to ending. I know that you've been on different shows talking about COVID-19, how everything's being impacted, so I've been catching some of that on your Facebook and your Instagram. So those who are watching should definitely follow her. She has some really interesting interviews.
So thank you, Cindy. How are you and your family?
We're good. Things are slower than usual, but they're staying safe. They're still working, but they're practicing, self-distancing, and I'm working from home and doing the Cafecito times to, provide feedback and help for students who are seeking higher education. So it's been really nice. Like, you're our last guest. So tomorrow I'm doing just like a recap and announcement of how we're moving forward, but you're our last guest, and I'm just happy that you were able to join us. Thank you. So I guess we can start off. This is like the first question that I ask people is, why did you seek the degrees that you have? I know you have several, which is amazing. So I think mainly, why did you decide, and how did you end up where you are? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Sure. Obviously, I'm from the Republic of Haiti. As an immigrant, when you come to America, you don't have much options when it comes to career choices, right? It's either you become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, right? Those are pretty much the three options. So for me, I learned early on that perhaps med school was not going to work out for me because I did not understand the periodic table. And to this day, I don't think I understand it. So that's when I made the ultimate decision to go on and go to law school. And from there, I've always followed that path. And ultimately, I finished law school in 2016. after earning my master's several years prior. And when I went to law school, I thought that I was going to practice immigration law and help defend immigrants. Because as an immigrant, just watching my family members and friends, just seeing all of the challenges that they went through to get folks legalized and to enter people into the United States, I wanted to be, at the forefront of those causes, not only from an intellectual perspective, but from a perspective of someone who understands the nuances and who understands the pain of immigrants as they try to migrate to this country. But once I got to law school, I realized that I became exposed to the world through the program in international human rights law, where I worked with various countries throughout the continent of Africa. So my vision kind of evolved, which is how I ended up where I am today. Instead of practicing, I focus primarily on foreign policy.
Yeah, and I mean, Joanna and I, we were in the same law school, so I mentioned that before, and I remember that she did the program for international human rights first with our professor, and then I when I was interviewing to see if I could get the same type of experience, she was actually in the same room, so she interviewed me. So it's really cool that you can actually network with your colleagues, and that they can see that you have similar or the same type of passions. So that was pretty cool. And so now I love seeing everything that you do. So you went from doing this program, graduating, then you went to do your LLM in Washington D.C. at
Washington,
George
George Washington.
Washington University.
Yeah.
And now you're appearing on television. You're a legal analyst, and I think that's just incredible that you are doing something that started out as traveling and getting to know, that the different types of issues in a continent to, ending up doing this now. So, in talking about about your passion and how you ended up, was it something that kind of came to you, or did you already know that you wanted to pursue what you're doing right now? Like, did you have that in mind?
Actually, like I told you, it was to finish law school and practice immigration law.
Yeah.
But I went to law school with an open mind. I said that I would take advantage of opportunities as they present themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did. Because I think that sometimes you can't dream beyond of your exposure. So it was while I was abroad in Africa and in different countries throughout the continent and in Southeast Asia, I started focusing more on how U.S. foreign policies impacted those countries. In particular, I started to look at institutions like USAID, right, to see how much funds were allocated or appropriated to them and how those funds are being used in these various countries for the betterment of the people. And another thing I became interested in was the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So in respective countries, every country has a Secretary of State, right? So I became very interested in the work that they were doing. And again, from there, my mind just evolved and I realized that there were endless opportunities in the foreign policy space. And from there, I came back to Indiana. And to be frank with you, I could no longer live there because Indiana became too small for me.
Yeah.
And that's when I just got up, put my clothes in my car, and I relocated to DC. And to be frank with you, that has been the most amazing experience in my life. I am happy. I'm pursuing my dreams. I'm on the right path. And so that's how it happened. I didn't go to law school wanting to do the things that I'm doing right now. My vision evolved as I became more exposed. And that's why I always tell young people that, or anybody, if an opportunity is presented to you, whether you know how to, to make it happen or not, you take advantage of that because the lessons learned from that opportunity are transferable or could be transferable, or in most cases are transferable to various parts of your life and perhaps even to your next job. You just never know. So take advantage of opportunities as they come.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember that you repeated that to me often because I was pretty shy about getting to network with the people that were available to me, and even going after opportunities. And you were just saying all the time, one opportunity can connect you to the next one, so it can open up another door. So I think that's something that has kept up with me too, as you were basically my mentor through that time in law school. So I have a couple of questions already coming in. There's a comment here. I didn't know you could get your master's before law school. I thought people went right to law school after graduating with your bachelor's. So I know that your master's, you earned that right after your bachelor's, correct?
Yes. So what happened was it was not a part of the plan. And for the person who asked the question, a master's is not required for you to go to law school. It is not requirement. That is not one of the prerequisites. The only prerequisite is that you have an undergraduate degree and you take the LSAT. In some states, in some country, I mean, some schools are actually using the GRE in score in lieu of your LSAT score. So my master's just came about. Again, I had a full scholarship to do my master's, so I said, why not do it? And another point that I would like to make is that the first time I applied to law school, I applied to 15 law school. They all rejected me, right? And while I was waiting, to be accepted, this opportunity came along for me to pursue a master's degree on a full scholarship, and I received living allowance. And so I said, why not? And that's how it happened. And then again, and then after that, went to law school, and then got another master in laws. So the highest credential in terms of academics that I could get in the world of law in the U.S. So
Yeah. So, and how much time was it between your master's and your Juris Doctorate? Because I know that
from my
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, for my master's, so immediately after undergrad, which I finished in 2009, right? And so from undergrad, I went to grad school, and I finished in 2010.
Okay.
And I did not start law school until 2014, 2013 when I
Oh.
started law school. So it took a while because again, I didn't get accepted after I applied
Mm-hmm.
for my for law school the second
Mm-hmm.
time around after I finished my master's. So it was actually the third time I applied that I got accepted to a number of law schools all across the United States, and then ultimately I chose IU McKinney.
So we do have a few questions. I do kind of want to lead us to the path of how you found your truth and your passion. I know that it's been something that you go and talk to different students in different venues and different universities about doing that. So can you kind of tell us, how did you determine what your passion was? Because I know that a lot of students may be wondering, especially as the world is changing in front of our eyes, how is it that someone can determine that for themselves?
First and foremost, your greatest asset is you. Literally, that is your greatest asset. There is nobody like you in this world. And it's just the reality. And that is your strength. So capitalize off of that. There is no need to be like anybody else or to try to sound like anybody else. Just be your unique self, and opportunities will present themselves to you. So what I can tell you is that life is forever evolving, and as we can see right now in the midst of COVID-19, I don't think we're going to go back to what life used to be prior to COVID-19. I think that there will be a lot of changes. A lot of the work that we do is probably going to be done through the internet, right? Using Zoom for conference calls, and less people are going to have to be in the office, right? But what I can tell you is that no matter what it is, stay true to your passion and stay true to where you are. Because when you are operating in your space, when you are operating where you feel most comfortable, and what I mean most comfortable is that I understand there are challenges. Challenges are going to come. But even in the midst of the challenges, when you know that you are in the right place, ultimately opportunities will open up for you. Your passion will lead you to do more and more, because when you are engaged in something that you simply don't care about, you don't want to put as much into it, right? But when you care about something, you go above and beyond. And I'll give a perfect example. Like my job, what I do every day, I advise foreign governments on foreign policy related matters. I'm talking to members of Congress, staffers. I'm at the White House, the State Department, the Pentagon, you name it. But because I love it so much, I find myself going above and beyond my job description. So it allows me to flourish and to be a star in my respective space. Not necessarily because I'm the smartest in the room, right? But because of my work ethic and because I'm actually operating in a space that I actually enjoy and I'm passionate about.
Wow. Wow. I love that, especially during the time that you are studying, determining what you're going to come out with right after. I know that I remember just hearing you about your work. I mean, I always joked and called you a hustler. Like I always would come around and see, we will meet in the atrium at the law school. And every time I heard you and your work ethic and that you were putting yourself through school, that were working towards your JD and you were already thinking of your LLM, it was amazing to see that you had that drive in you. And I think that you determined that pretty early. Like, I think that you developed that very early. For me, for those who are listening, I was not a hustler at first. I think Joanna pushed me to be a hustler to,
You've always been a hustler, Cindy. You are a trailblazer. You're the first TPS recipient in the state of Indiana to have earned a juris doctorate. I mean, come on. It takes a special kind of person to kind of break that kind of barrier. So I am so proud of you. You know, I love you. And it's always my pleasure to come alongside with you and help and work together.
And this is the type of people you need to surround yourself with, everyone, because Joanna has been amazing. And seriously, you're the best, and I love you too. I think I would not be where I am without people like you who have supported me, and as you are one of my biggest supporters for sure. So thank you. And I think we do have some questions here. I think I should probably go along through this. Let's see. How can we find ways to expose ourselves to new opportunities while in quarantine, and how have you managed that during this time?
You see, this is how I look at life. I look at life in the midst of every adversity, there's an opportunity. I don't care what kind of issue that presents itself. There is an opportunity for you to market yourself, for you to make money, for you to learn a skill, right? For you to connect with people. So, for example, as you know, because of my work in Congress, I kind of know what's happening when it comes to the foreign policy space. I kind of know the policies that are being considered when it comes to the African continent. So because I'm in a very unique position, and because I understand the nuances that are in these different spaces, I've been able to I've been on television just about in many major networks in Africa discussing COVID-19 and foreign policy implications, like the president's decision to withhold aid from the WHO. What does that mean for the African continent, right? And so many other things. So in the midst of this adversity that we're going through right now, COVID-19, I am utilizing this opportunity to further expand my brand all over the African continent. And also I've been able to, because I'm working from home, I'm able to do several things simultaneously: reconnect with friends, reconnect with mentors, reconnect with people in my space. I get to read a whole lot more about foreign policy related matters. So even in the midst of this pandemic, there are things that you're good at that you can capitalize off of. And there are things that you're good at, and even though other people may have the same skill, but they can't do it the way you do it. Like there are a plethora of legal analysts on television, right? but I can never be like none of those people, and they can never be like me. And what makes you stand out is the fact that you are unique. And
Yeah.
again, never forget that. So there are a whole lot of things that you can do. You need to sit down and assess, what are my talents? What are my skill sets? What am I good at? And sometimes, you know, your talents don't translate into monetary gains immediately, right? It could take 2, 3 years, maybe even 10 years,
Hmm.
but keep building on it. Keep learning, keep, keep branding yourself, keep practicing. Because I do believe in the idea that you need to master your craft. Whatever space that you're in, you need to master it, right?
Yeah.
Authenticity is not enough. Like, you're just authentic, you're kind, you speak positivity. So I say that faith without works is dead, right? So you have to put in the work. You have to read. You have to master your craft. You have to connect with people in your space. You have to continuously keep yourself abreast of recent developments within your area.
Wow. Yeah, I think just like you're saying, I think the people that I have recently met, especially women who are so driven and successful in their lives, I've been hearing a lot of knowing your own craft, like where do you begin is where you when you start learning and like you're open-minded and learning and then developing what it is that you want to do. And what I mean also by that is that recently just understanding, you know, myself, I have to often question, okay, where is it that I want to be? And I have to start with learning. And I think that that's something that you're telling us today. And it's definitely powerful when you get to know what it is that drives you. And I do have a couple more questions here relating to, um, because I think you gave us a lot of good tips. I think I'm gonna, when I do the replay, I'm definitely going to be looking back and writing those down, even for myself, because I think a lot of times we think other people have everything together and what they're doing, but most of the time you're just adjusting to what you're doing. So for me, it's always a learning curve. So, I
No,
don't
because we are constantly evolving. And another thing that I want to make clear is that as you are pursuing your dreams and your ambitions, um, don't even when because it's going to get tough. There's no
know.
denying that it's going to get tough, right? So what I want people to know is that don't change the goal. The goal should remain the same. It's how you get there that you may have to change a little bit because of the various obstacles. But I think ultimately the goals will be pretty consistent, right?
Mhm.
So just because it's hard does not mean that it's not for you, right?
Yeah.
It just means that you need to work a little bit harder. And
Hmm.
through perseverance, through resilience, you can conquer anything. That's what I tell people. There is nothing that you can't achieve. The only limits that we have are the limits that we have placed on ourselves, right? Live a limitless life and don't allow people to impose their their fears upon you or their limitations upon you, because people will do that. So just because they were not able to achieve X, Y, and Z, they will tell you you can't achieve it either. And that's not true. Just
Hmm.
because it didn't work out for you does not mean it won't work out for me. We have different paths, different journeys. So don't allow anyone to impose their limitations onto you, and remain consistent and remain resilient. And in due season, I can assure you, you shall reap the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, and I was an amen to that because I've seen that, especially like women like you. It's amazing, and I kind of relating to that. Um, I know that some students may have a maybe in a place where they might, or even just even attorneys who are watching this, that they might consider changing their career. And you mentioned that it, you went from wanting to be an immigration attorney for those who are just turning in to being a legal analyst now and being in a really big platform, especially with the African continent. So What advice can you share with them in switching? Because I know you mentioned like don't change what you want to do, like what it is. So I guess what you're saying is it relating to what makes you happy, like what that looks, what success determines that for you, and not what title that might be? Is that because I know that we don't often consider, we want to be an attorney, but what else can you actually do? And not just like the money, or not just like feeling good about yourself, but it is more of what you ultimately want in the future. So can you tell us about like how did you make that switch, and what can people do now in determining what's next step for them if they don't no longer want to do what they're doing right now?
Okay. First and foremost, if you have a law degree and you're an immigrant, you're an immigrant or you're from a minority group, you are part of a very privileged class. There aren't too many people in the United States like you. So
Mm-hmm.
you hold a specific level of expertise, right? And because of that, many doors will be open for you. Now, the question is, are you waiting for opportunities to come to you, or are you knocking on doors? Or are you exposing yourself? Are you making yourself available? Do people know what you're doing? And I know sometimes as immigrants, we don't like to talk about ourselves. We don't like to talk about what we're doing because we find it to be braggadocious. Well, guess what? This is America, right? And especially in this era that we live in, right? You have to sell yourself. You have to. No one is going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
If people don't know what you're doing, they can't help you. So we need to take off that timid hat and utilize our social media platforms for the right reasons. Instead of using your social media platform, or this may not, this, and by the way, this advice may not be for you, right? You may come from a privileged background, you're highly connected, or you're already in your field or whatnot, or you're already deep into your field, you're seasoned. Perhaps you're not interested in expanding, but I think everyone should look to expand. I don't care how much money you're making. I don't care what titles you hold, right? You should always keep yourself relevant by posting maybe on LinkedIn about the things that you're doing. And on top of it, maybe it's not for you that you're posting. Maybe that Latina girl, Latina guy will see your post and become so inspired. So in the midst of you, pursuing your dreams and your ambitions and excelling, you have a duty and that is to serve society.
Mm-hmm.
Because your success does no good to the Latin community or the immigrant community if they don't get to see people like you. We have to realize is that it is incredibly difficult to come to a country where you don't speak the language, you don't understand the culture, to manage to get yourself together and finish law school. Either you're practicing or maybe you decided to not practice. You're working in different spaces. It is hard. It is difficult. And other people need to see the image of you. Because sometimes I know me, for example, there are things that happen in my life I post. It's not for me that I post. It's because I want someone to read my post online and not give up and say, because Joanna was able to excel, because Joanna was able to do so, I can do the same thing. Because there's nothing special about me, right? I'm not that special.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do have is I have resilience. I'm unbreakable. And if I want something, I'm going to get it. That's simple. I believe in making dream boards. I believe in words of affirmation, right? I believe in speaking life into myself. I believe in surrounding myself with positive energy. So back to the question that you posed earlier before I went on a rant. If there's something that you're good at, use social media to share with the world. And you can literally start a business on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Use it for the right reasons instead of using it perhaps just to, post whatever. Like brand yourself on social media. Are you a legal expert in the world of, you know, maybe immigration, maybe IP law, maybe, you know, like there's so many different areas. Identify what your expertise is, and that expertise you have may not be what you're working, may not be the field that you're working in right now. Because let's be honest, life happens. We don't always end up where we want to be career-wise, right? But while you have a 9 to 5, build your brand on the side. Like, and I'll use myself as an example. Um, I am a lobbyist in so many words. You know, I spend most of my time in Congress and advising foreign governments, right? But at the same token, I still want to be a legal analyst. So what do? I use my social media so that people can know the work that I'm doing, and I get invited on television shows all across the continent of Africa where I'm discussing foreign policy related matters. So I get to combine both of my worlds, right? Because I took the initiative. No one called me and said, hey, I would like you to be on TV and speak on this matter. I went above and beyond, and I went and looked for those opportunities, and therefore here I am today. So you have to put yourself out there. You can't be afraid, and you can't be afraid of making a fool out of yourself either. You can't, because when you first start a journey, it's going to be tough. You're not always going to get it right. There are days you may even look like a complete idiot. But guess what? As time goes on, you will become better and better and better.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Johanna. I think touching what you mentioned, just as an immigrant, we have, for me, we're both immigrants, we're both women of color, and we do have some questions here. And how do you overcome struggles, adversity, and self-doubt? And then the second one is, how do we overcome imposter syndrome? I don't often, you're such a strong individual and so driven that I never saw you, struggle in the sense of you talk about it. I know that you have a lot of struggles and had those conversations, but you just carry yourself with so much grace, and you carry yourself with so much confidence. So, how did you, overcome any of that? How do you have this confidence about you?
And by the way, I've gotten so many rejection letters. In fact, I applied to be on a board recently, and I just got the letter yesterday saying that the board doesn't think you're a good fit. Oh. I'm like, okay, I guess, so this is how I look at life, right? My thing is, if the door closes, that's not what God has in store for me. And sometimes, because I am a believer. I think a lot of the things I've been able to accomplish, I can tell you, but for the grace of God, I would not be here today, right? So I do believe when doors close, sometimes this is God's way of saying, no, I have something better for you, or not right now, just wait a little bit longer. And when I look back over my life and I look at some of the things that I was rejected for, I said to myself, had I received them at the time, I wouldn't have been able to actually utilize them for my next phase in life, right? So because of that belief that I have in God, I think that, his way of saying no is a way of redirecting my path into something so much greater. I'm able to accept rejections. I am, and I'm okay with them. Like, I'm at a point in my life where I'm not afraid of anything at all. I'm fearless, because at the end of the day, what God has in store for me will be done regardless. Now, I am human. When you get nobody wants to be rejected. I don't care who you are. That's the reality. Everybody wants to feel accepted. Everybody wants to feel included, right? So it hurts for a few days, maybe a few hours, and then I'll move on with my life and keep going, keep pursuing opportunities. So one rejection is not going to stop me from pursuing the things that I care about. It's just not. So we cannot allow rejections to keep us from our destiny. Because so many of us, the minute that we're rejected, we give up, we throw in the towel. That is not how it's done. Rejection is part of the process. And I also believe even when you're rejected, there's something that you learn throughout that process that you can use in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's always something to be learned, whether the situation is good or bad. You just have to change your perspective. You change your perspective, oh my goodness. I'm not saying again life is going to be easy, but you change your perspective, you will see the improvements in your life. The mind is so powerful. What you think is what you will become. If you think you are a failure, guess what? You will fail and you will fail. But if you think you're a conqueror, you think that you are on top of the world, you think that you are the best immigration attorney there is on this planet, or you think that you are an amazing advocate for people, right? You will become those things. But you have to think it first.
Yes. Wow. And I think for a lot of our audience, it's seeing not on this. Yeah, obviously you have to change your mindset for opportunities to open up, and I completely. A lot of us have become a lot of firsts in our community. Of achieving a lot of awards or degrees. But I think overcome others. So imposter syndrome, I think it's something that it was deeply ingrained in me, and that's something I'm overcoming. Did you have that same struggle of imposter syndrome at some point? And if so, how did you overcome that?
Again, I think all of us have dealt with that to a certain extent. But you just have to realize that you are amazing. You are God's gift to this earth. And I mean this sincerely. And you have to continue to believe in yourself, even when nobody else believes in you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand that, yes, it's tough. Yeah, I mean, I've met people who've gone through some of the most difficult situations. And to see where they are today, I'm inspired, right? And along the way, you meet those types of people and you ask yourself, how are they so unbreakable, right? Especially in a society where people are looking for instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
The age of social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, right? Twitter, whereby a snap of a finger, someone can go viral, right? But you have to understand that that's not how success works. It takes time. It takes commitment. And sometimes you will sweat and you will sweat and you will sweat. But at some point, you shall reap the fruits of your labor.
Thank you, Joanna. I think everything that you're saying is just so powerful. And I'm really glad that we're doing this today. So I think I'm starting to run out of questions. So for our audience, I know we're about to hit our 45 or an hour mark here. So if anyone has any questions during this time and that maybe they relate to you or maybe someone that you know, because this will be recorded and put on our YouTube channel. What else would you like to ask Joanna today? And go ahead and drop this in the comment box. I think I have one more question, but I don't know if I should just kind of save it for for later. But here's one. Have you ever thought of practicing law?
Um, I may. I'm not sure yet. And if I do, it will be sanctions law, which is in alignment with the work that I do around foreign policy. But I love the work that I do. So let me tell you a typical day. This is a typical day for me before COVID-19. Things are being done a bit differently now, right? So a typical day for me is I wake up around 5 o'clock in the morning, go to the gym sometimes, not always, and I check my email, and usually there's a crisis. And based on that crisis, I will schedule my meetings for that day. So my meetings are in Congress, the State Department, different institutions around DC to promote the interests of the government that I work for. So my day is very unpredictable. So I never know what time I'm going to get off. And I'm sharing this with you because, not because I want to be braggadocious, because I think it's important for you to know that when you are operating in a space that you genuinely care about and you're passionate about, the hours don't seem as long. Again, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I don't get home until 11 at night because part of my work is relationship building. So I'm always going to a networking event, a reception, right? Because that's how you influence foreign policy at these receptions.
Yeah.
So once you find something that you like, you won't feel like you work a day in your life. And that's how I feel. I don't feel like I'm working.
That's amazing.
At all.
Wow. Yeah, and I think a lot of times, and I've been hearing this more and more throughout as I'm exploring it myself, is you have to fall in love with the process, not with just what you're doing, but like what you ultimately will gain or what your ultimate goal is, but that you have to fall in love with the process. And I think even in your work, like your daily whatever, it determines how much value you like create for yourself and how happy you make yourself. And sometimes it might not even be like that fancy big house or that fancy car, like those ultimate goals, but it's literally the process of what you're doing right now and are you enjoying that. And I see that in your work, and that I think that's amazing. So I know that sometimes it's hard for me to catch you, like I'll text you and we're not here for a few days maybe, and then that kind of I'm understanding that even more now. And sometimes you're still up and you'll give me a call. It's like so late over here and so late over there, and I'm just like, wow, when do you sleep? Because you're always up and you're always doing something, and I'm happy to see that how happy you are in this. So
Listen, as immigrants, we have to do what we got to do.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm first generation in my family to do any of this stuff. And you know how our immigrant families are, they put you on this pedestal. You're the hero of the family. And that pressure, oh Lord, it's too much. It's too much pressure.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you are a leader, Leadership comes with great responsibility. I think someone, Fula Queen, my Liberian sister, she said, "How do you overcome fear?"
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
Again, I think having that confidence, having those prep talks, and understanding that I have a very unique perspective, right? I have a perspective that nobody else has. I don't care if you went to Harvard. I don't care where you went to school. I don't care if you are the son or daughter of Bill Gates. I don't care. My perspective would be nothing like yours ever. And that's what makes me powerful. And the older I get, the more I'm realizing the importance of being authentic, because your authenticity will open doors for you. Think about it. If all of us thought the same way, will the world be the way it is? Will society be as advanced as it is today? Probably not. And in fact, I can assure you no. Right? So to overcome fear, you have to have the confidence in yourself. And you have to acknowledge that. Yes, I am different. And you know what? It's my difference that makes me powerful. Period.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that's a really big takeaway. I
Yeah.
think because we a lot of times feel the fear because we feel that we're so different
Mhm.
that why can't I be like the next person? Why can't I be like the person that I admire? I feel like I'm not, you know, in the sense like quote unquote normal or the way that that person works. But I think owning that difference, it creates that power. So I definitely agree with that. So I guess we are starting to get closer to our time. If anyone has another question, let me know. I think you did answer this one a little bit, but this is our last question from audience here. How do you help others find their authentic self?
So, and my good friend Nerly asked this question. Um, you know, all I can do for me is to share my life story in hopes to inspire people. I am not a life coach. Um, my expertise is national security, counterterrorism, intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are steps that one can take um, in order to become confident. Because I think once you're confident in who you are and you've accepted who you are, and you've accepted the good, the bad, and the ugly, that will then allow you to operate in your most authentic self. But again, you must first accept who you are. You must accept the fact that you are who you are. And also, you have to accept the fact that you are great, you are amazing, because you are, right? And only then will you be able to operate in your authentic space.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many of us are so busy trying to be like the next Instagram sensation to the point where we have forgotten who we are. You can't be so caught up in what other people have going on to the point where you don't even remember who you are, what your purpose is on this planet. What are your gifts? What are your talents? Because the reality is we each have a gift. All of us. All of us. There is something that you can do that nobody can do it. And you do it with so much ease. And even if someone else can do it, but they actually have to put effort into it. But you
Mm-hmm.
do it with so much ease, you don't even have to think about it. You snap a
Yeah,
finger and you're done.
love
Right?
that.
What is that thing? Tap into it and incorporate it into your career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you are an amazing orator. Be a litigator. Litigate cases in court. You will kill it. You will murder them in court. You will murder opposing counsel or defense counsel, right? There is something that you are good at that nobody else is as good at it as you are, and you can do it by the snap of a finger. You don't have to prepare. You don't have to think twice about it. You just do it. And you've been taking it for granted. What is that thing? Think about it. What is that thing that you do by a snap of a finger, right? Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And try to incorporate that skill into whatever industry you choose to go into, whether it be law, science, technology, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said, yes, accepting yourself in past also keeps others from using it against you. That is so true. That is so true. When you are confronted with your own demons, whatever, however you want to approach it, nobody can ever use that against you. When you've confronted your weaknesses, let's say, for example, you stutter a lot, right? And maybe that's like one of the things that you're self-conscious about. I stutter, right? But once you've accepted the reality that, you know what, I stutter, but you know what? I still make good points. I'm still an amazing speaker, with stuttering or not. And the next time you go speak in public and someone comments and says, she stutters too much, you're like, okay, thank you for the feedback, right? I mean, you can
Love this.
find ways. You can find ways to improve, to not stutter as much, right? But for some people, it's how they were born. They can't fix it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are in a position where you can fix it, that's a good thing, right? But if you're not, because that's just how you were born, then it's like, okay, thank you for your feedback. So
Right.
yes, that is a very valid point the person made. If you acknowledge your weaknesses, people can't use them against you to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So true. Thank you, Joanna. This has been not only empowering for me, I hope it has been empowering for a lot of people who are listening. And this has been gold. And that's what I can say. It's been awesome. I think my last question would just be, how are you moving forward, I guess, in like what you're doing next? Do you already envision what you're doing next? And um did you make a dream board for it, or did you how are you envisioning that?
Yeah, every year I make a dream board, and I have a good sense as to where I'm heading. Um, Again, I love the space that I'm in the foreign policy space, and my goal is to continue to grow in that space and to learn as much as I can, really, to become an expert, because you can't neglect that part. I do believe that you have to do the work. You have to
Mm-hmm.
study your discipline. You have to learn the nuances. It's incredibly important, right? So yeah, so essentially just, you know, learning more about my space and becoming more and more of an expert in the space of foreign policy as it pertains to the continent of Africa. And also, on my journey, try to bring as many people with me as I possibly can, try to inspire, try to empower, by sharing my story, whatever the case may be. But I think it is incredibly important that as we propel to the next level, we don't leave our immigrant brothers and sisters behind. Because again, we know how hard it was as a first generation, right? And we've made the mistakes, we've been through the process. Let's help them to bypass some of the mistakes that we've made so they can have a much easier transition, right? So it is important for each and every one of us to mentor somebody, each one teach one. I do believe in that. There is something that you can do to help someone to achieve their dreams. There's always something that you can do. So
Yeah.
that's important to me.
Thank you, Joanna. Yes, it's also important to me. I think that's honestly how I started everything with Latina, that it wasn't just, you know, doing a business. It was actually making sure that we were making ourselves seen, heard, and mentoring others. And I'm glad that we're in this together and we have that same mindset. So,
Yeah, it's I tell everybody, I am here one by the grace of God, right? I always give God where credit is due. I don't care where I end up in life. If I end up at the White House, one of the intelligence agencies, I will forever give God glory, because
amen.
but for him opening certain doors for me, I would not be where I am today. So one, I give God the glory. Two, I'm so grateful for the incredible mentors that I've had in my life, who poured so much into me, right? Who saw my potential even when I didn't believe in myself. Because the truth be told, I did not always believe in myself, right?
Mhm.
There are times when I was, I was just like, oh, I'm not the smartest. I don't know. I'm done. I don't belong here. You know about this, in law school, my first year of law school, I didn't feel like I belonged there. I was just like, oh my gosh, my classmates were talking about, wills and estate. And I'm like, I've never heard of these terminologies, right? And I'm like, they're so advanced. What is a will?
Right.
Right? Uh, what are these people talking about? So you're in the class, and we're having discussions around these different cases that we're reading, and your classmates are just seems to be so far ahead of you. So it makes you feel like you're not adequate. You don't belong there, right?
Yeah.
So again, my mentors who believed in me, who poured so much into me, second and third, I thank God for giving me the work ethic and the resilience that I have to keep going no matter what.
Amen. Thank you, Joanna, for being here with me today and sharing all that with us. And you have been incredible. And I can't wait to see you. I hope that I can see you soon. I know that we're not sure what the future holds with COVID-19, but I hope that I can make it to Washington so you can make it to this side of the country and visit us too. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Cindy. Who knows when we'll be able to go back outside?
Right? Who knows? Well, at least I can just say positive mindset that I'll see you soon. So.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Right.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Have a wonderful day, and thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Okay, take care. Bye.